Welcome to the Classical Gabfest, a weekly discussion about the ever-changing world of classical music. I'm your host for this week, Kensho Watanabe, and with me as always are Tiffany Liu and William White. This week, we'll be discussing the trailer that just dropped for Steven Spielberg's remake of West Side Story. Then, we'll talk about the daily habits of famous composers. And finally, we'll talk about classical musicians as advertising brand ambassadors. But first, we like to start with our prelude segment, so Will, what do we have today?
This week, for something a little different, we're going to go back to the endless well of Classic FM's classical music quizzes. Our selection this week is a quiz titled, Only a Music Guru Can Tell Whether These Facts Are About Mozart or Beyoncé. Clicking on the quiz here, it says, two legends separated by 3 centuries, bound together by unparalleled music genius. How much did Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and Beyoncé Knowles actually have in common? Turns out, actually quite a bit. Take our quiz to guess whether these facts are about an 18th century bewigged prodigy or Sasha Fierce. All right, guys, do you think we're music gurus? Do you have any trepidation going into this, or do you think it's going to be easy peasy?
I have no comment. Let's just do this.
I guess we'll see.
All right, let's click start. All right, first up, we've got this artist's stage name is a shortened version of their birth name. Is it Mozart, Beyoncé, both, or neither?
I'm not sure that their use of the term stage name is
I don't
already
think Mozart
a little
has
bit...
a stage name.
Yeah.
Although, isn't Mozart like Wolfgang Chrysidorus Theodosius?
Yeah, sure, he's got a full name.
But he's got like 5 or 6, middle names.
So, I think the real question is how much do we trust the quiz writers?
Right.
Because this could easily just be a very bad use of the term stage name.
We don't, is the answer.
Well, if we don't, then the answer is both, I think, right?
I'm going to say both.
I'm going to say both.
Correct. Bay's full name is Beyoncé Giselle Knowles Carter, and Mozart was baptized Johannes Chrysostomus Wolfgangus Theophilus Mozart.
Okay, well, the next question here. This artist achieved great success in their lifetime, but is known for staying very private. Beyoncé, Mozart, both, or neither?
They are really going for some generic phrasing here,
Right.
I think that this got to be both as well, don't you?
I'm not sure. Private is a word that I think is a little bit more applicable to many composers than others. It's not a word that can just generically be applied to all composers. For example, Brahms was well known to be quite a private man. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I would have, if you would have asked me, in the pantheon of composers to put several under the private category, I don't think Mozart would have been in that group. So I think I might go with Beyoncé in this one.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, Mozart does not, especially for the basic understanding of this composer, I wouldn't expect people to put him as private.
Yeah, I'll go with Beyoncé too. Oh, we were correct.
There we go. See?
Mozart wasn't as shy of the limelight, says Classic FM.
All right. Next, Kensho.
This artist was a child prodigy.
Well, we know Mozart was, but I don't know if Beyoncé was. She was certainly a young person when she rose to stardom. Wasn't she in a group before she went solo?
Yeah, Destiny's Child. Come on.
And so that's going back to
a child of the 90s. Well, come on.
Isn't that going back to the 90s, Destiny's Child?
Yeah, but does that place her in child prodigy territory though?
She might have been a child prodigy, but that's not like a famous part of her story.
Right.
She must have been talented pretty young if she was in Destiny's Child in the 90s. Because how old is she now? 50 at most?
Look how much we know about Beyonce,
Are we music
guys?
gurus? Yeah, exactly. I'm going to say both.
Yeah, why not? Let's do both. Boom.
Correct.
I love this. Beyonce's vocal talents were discovered when her school dance teacher began humming a song. Bey finished it, hitting every high-pitched note per note.
It's just like when Mozart transcribed from memory the Allegri Miserere after hearing it one time in the papal chapel.
It's the same thing.
Next one.
All right. Next.
This artist used to have a pet snake.
Okay, I like this one. This is the first real question that we really need to, if we really know these people, right?
I doubt that Mozart would have had a pet snake. I guess I would have.
Although it would thrill me beyond comprehension to learn that about him.
That just doesn't seem like an 18th century anything that like an Austrian kid would do. Like, are there snakes in the Alps? I mean, he's from Salzburg.
Yeah, I don't think so. So it's either Beyonce or neither, right? So
Oh, yeah, we haven't had an either yet.
So it's whether or not we think Beyonce had a pet snake is the question.
I think that's entirely plausible.
Should we say Beyonce?
I'm going to say neither.
Yeah, I think this might be a trap.
Tiff, where are you on this?
I'm gonna walk into the trap.
Okay. Oh, Tiffany was right.
Oh.
The answer was Beyonce.
But 19% of people answered neither.
Huh. She once had a pet python named Fendi, who she apparently used to snuggle with.
Aww.
Whom? All right, next.
A species of fly is named after this artist. Beyonce, Mozart, both or neither. Wow, I don't know.
I only know the Drosophilus, so that's the only one that I can say is definitely not named after Mozart or Beyonce.
I mean, he does have a name that kind of sounds like it might be some sort of taxonomical.
That's true.
I'm going to guess Mozart or neither.
Or do you think someone recently was trying to be ironic and named a fly like Beyonce instead of a bee?
I'm just going to guess Mozart. What are you guys doing?
I think I'm going to go Mozart as well.
All right, I'm going to go with irony, Beyonce.
All right.
Nailed
Oh,
it!
you were right.
Oh, go Kensho. I don't know how to say this. Scaptia Beyonce is a species of horsefly named after Beyonce. Researcher Brian Lessard thought the distinctive golden hairs on the insect's lower abdomen made the fly bootylicious, a term made famous by the group Destiny's Child. And next.
Which artist is apparently related to Mahler?
That would be so funny if it were both.
That'd be amazing. Related to Mahler. I would think Mozart would be the more obvious answer.
I mean, yeah, that it just seems rather more likely.
Both from the same country.
Region.
But it depends. I mean, Mozart, I don't think that Mozart has any living heirs. So, but he had siblings.
Well, it kind of
cousins.
depends. Yeah, I mean, I think they're probably using related.
Yeah.
And the
Rather
apparently
loosely.
doesn't help things either. Like, I'm
Right.
sure that this is not like a descended from situation.
Isn't Beyonce like related to George Washington or Benjamin Franklin or something? I
Oh,
seem
really?
to recall that in my...
Yeah.
That
And the
doesn't
fact
seem
that they're
impossible
using
either.
apparently in parentheses makes it clear that it's not neither, right? Because if it were
Right.
neither, it would just be
Right.
like, which artist is related to Mahler?
It is both.
So
That would be so funny if it were both.
I'm going to say both. What are you guys going
I'm
to say?
going
I'm
with
gonna-
Mozart.
yeah, I'm going to go with Mozart. No, my God, what?
Oh, we're all wrong.
shoot.
According to popular theory, Beyonce and Mahler may or may not be cousins 4 times removed.
Wow. Well, boy, with a popular theory and they may or may not be, the criteria for
So much research.
objectivity is really
So
high
much
in
facts.
in this quiz. All right, who has a species of frog named after them?
Yeah, I'm going Beyonce again.
Well, you can't have both a fly and a frog named after you.
Why
can
not?
you?
I'm going to go with Mozart for this one.
Yeah, me too.
I'm doubling
Game
down.
theory.
We were right. Mozart. The Eleutherodactylus amadeus is known as Mozart's frog. It was so named after Blair Hedges, who discovered the species, made an audio spectrogram of its call, which sounded surprisingly musical.
I think this means that we need to do a segment on species that have been named after composers.
That's actually a wonderful idea. Let's do that. All right, next one.
This artist's father managed their career from a young age.
I think that's both.
I'm going to call both.
Yeah, I think so.
We were right.
Leopold Mozart and Matthew Knowles both played a big part in their children's careers, which is what happens when you have child prodigies, as we now know they were both.
Next. Which artist famously ate a block of cheese just before a performance?
I think that's Mozart. I don't think that does not seem like a 21st century, artiste thing. Like, I don't feel like the Goop generation is going to do that. I'm going with Mozart.
Yeah, it's Mozart or neither, I think.
Yeah, I'll go Mozart.
Oh, it's
No,
neither.
it's neither. Did we manage
Lol.
to trick you?
Yes, you did, into making us take this quiz.
Next one. This artist has a very talented musical sister. That's both.
I think it's both.
Solange and Nonerl.
Oh, Will for the family tree there.
Nice.
Maria Anna Mozart and Solange Knowles were and are impressive artists in their own right.
I'm surprised that most people didn't get this one. It's 34% didn't get it right.
All right. The next one, which is also the last question.
This artist is taller than the other. And of course, there is no neither or both option for this. Who was taller?
Beyonce, I think, right?
Beyonce, I think,
I
is
think
taller.
so.
Yeah,
Nice.
we were correct.
Mozart stood at roughly 5'4", but Beyonce is 5'7".
All right, how'd we do?
My score was 7 out of 11. How about you guys?
I got 7 too.
8.
Oh, Tiffany is the winner.
Ooh.
I'm an expert on Mozart and Beyonce.
Well, that was a bit of a jag from our usual Preludes segments, but fun all the while. So you guys know all the answers now, so I guess you're not going to take this quiz. We did it for you, and aren't you glad that you didn't have to suffer through that? All right, that just about does it for this week's Prelude segment, but before we wrap up, we'd like to mention a special opportunity for our listeners. If you mention your love of the GabFest on social media or in an email to your classically inclined friends, tag or CC us, and you'll be entered for a chance to come on the show and participate in one of our more traditional Prelude games. It's a win-win. You get the fun of a musical listening challenge, and more people get to enjoy our wonderful show. So with that, we move on to our first topic. Tiffany, what do you have for us?
During the 93rd Annual Academy Awards last week, the trailer to Steven Spielberg's remake of the 1961 classic West Side Story was released. It stars Ansel Elgort as Tony and Rachel Ziegler as Maria, with the original Leonard Bernstein score being conducted by none other than Gustavo Dudamel. 20th Century Films wrapped up its filming in 2019, but the release of the movie itself was postponed due to COVID and is now slated to come out December 10th, 2021. If by some miracle you're unaware of the plot or history of this seminal work of theater and music, it's quite literally a modern adaptation of the Shakespeare play about forbidden love, Romeo and Juliet, a tale of rival teenage street gangs, the Jets and the Sharks, set in Upper West Side, New York City. The musical's book is by Arthur Lawrence. Leonard Bernstein composed the score with lyrics by Stephen Sondheim.
Woohoo!
The music and songs have since become staples of both the theater and concert hall repertoire, with the overture and symphonic dances appearing pretty regularly on orchestral programs. For our first segment today, we thought we'd take a peek together and respond to what we see and hear to the trailer. Now, obviously there is a visual component to the trailer, which you'll have to click the link in the show notes to appreciate, which you might consider doing, pausing this podcast and doing before you listen to this segment. But let's have a listen. Guys, you ready?
Yeah, looking forward to this. This is going to be fun. Oh, we got that iconic whistle. I love that they kept that in, because, that's not in the stage show. Got various scenes of New York City.
Good city shots, yeah.
A votive candle being placed in front of an icon. We're looking at the inside of a boxing gym. Ooh, a gun. Got a gang jumping over a fence.
Ooh, it's about to throw down.
Now this is a great shot. This is the
cool.
two gangs coming together. Their shadows are hugely tall and they're overlapping with each other. Dance at the gym. Tony and Maria seeing each other. We've got Anita and Bernardo. Looks like Rita Moreno is in as a new character of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Very colorful. Very fast-paced trailer here. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah, there's a
describing
lot of
all this.
shots, action shots of various parts of the plot without...
And we just got a glimpse of the balcony scene. The font, of the title here looks very similar to the original. Wow, that was a minute and a half. That went by in a flash.
I guess they don't need... I mean, they feel as if they don't necessarily need, expositional or, narrative structure to the trailer because it's so famous. I mean,
Right, they can do a lot of shorthanding.
That's right, and that's what we saw in this trailer. I mean, there was no dialogue. There's no kind of setting up drama because everyone knows, at least in its bare bones, the story of Romeo and Juliet, which even if you didn't know about West Side Story, you'd be able to get, there's rival gangs, and they're battling each other, and then there's love.
I mean, this is a cool trailer. I'm super looking forward to seeing this. I love West Side Story. It's one of my, most favorite pieces of anything of all time. The thing that kind of bums me out about trailers these days is that, like, everything has to be such a tragedy. I mean, and yes, this is a tragic story, but it's like, couldn't you have played a little bit of the mambo? Like give me a dance scene with some of that real upbeat Leonard Bernstein music. Like, not just, I mean, everything has to be like the Joker now, some creepy, slow thing. And then we have to see like, all of the like very serious drama moments.
But this was like the teaser trailer, right? Like, I'm imagining they're going to drop a few more trailers before the actual movie comes out next in December. So I'm sure you'll get a little bit more of that mambo stuff later on, maybe. Because this is coming out. Isn't this coming out for the 60th anniversary, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, and I think that not releasing a trailer that incorporates mambo in some capacity is a huge missed opportunity, unfortunately. But like, would you rather see the In a World?
Right, yeah, this is a very In a World, exactly, trailer. Yeah, that's a good point. The thing about West Side Story is that it takes a story that is a tragedy and it infuses so much life into the drama through the music. Not just the mambo, but I Feel Pretty, America.
Give us a little bit more Bernstein, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I actually agree. I mean, the takeaway from this is like, oh yeah, cool, the music is good, but actually it's all in the cinematography, which is very colorful and kind of has this interesting brightness about it.
It looked good.
Yeah, I'm quite excited. So when did you guys first hear about the fact that they were going to do the remake, and what was your reaction? Like, we've been through our fair share now of like refreshers of old movies. Did we need one, and why or why not?
I don't know. I mean, there have been so many remakes over the last like year and a half, 2 years, or even longer. Even the live motion capture Lion King and stuff like that. Like there's just so many movies of our childhood or even before that are now being remade in certain ways. So it's a little ho-hum for me. It's like, okay, all right, another remake. Cool. I mean, there wasn't anything wrong. Was there anything wrong with the original? Are there flaws? Will, you're the expert here, I guess. Like, were there flaws with the original version?
The direction, I think, is a weakness of that film.
Do you think Spielberg is gonna improve where?
I think Spielberg. He's the perfect guy who, in terms of like pointing the camera and getting the great shot. And the fact that the sort of deeper intellectual work has already been done for him is, I think, an advantage in this regard.
Shots fired.
The original movie was like co-directed. Basically, it was starting to be directed by Jerome Robbins, who was such a control freak and like a workhorse and made everybody's lives a living hell that they basically kicked him off of the set and they brought in Robert Wise to finish it. So, they bill it as a co-direction. Basically, it was like this guy got fired and they needed somebody to finish it. And, Robert Wise, a workaday director, not quite the visionary that Jerome Robbins was, but Jerome Robbins' talent was really for the stage. So, yeah, so I'm all for it. I think it's going to be really good.
You bring up an interesting point, which is that, like, what are we doing in Broadway and in classical music in general, but just remaking things all the time anyway? Like, we have to kind of be invested in the remaking process.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just you don't think of film as being an interpretive medium, whereas what we do is an interpretive medium, basically. I mean, we're cover artists essentially, but it's rare that filmmakers cover a previous film.
Yeah, well, but less and less rare, right? Because I mean, the biggest issue is that film, even more so than opera, which is our most kind of heavyweight, expensive form of our art, is so expensive. Like, it's hard not to read remakes of films as money-grubbing plays on the market of, moviegoers. So I think that there is some perspective to be brought to that I hadn't even considered, which is the fact that we remake things all the time, and we should be kind of invested in like remakes being substantively and creatively different from their originals, but in a way that honors, all the things that were good about the original also.
Who do you think is the audience for this? Do you think it, I mean, like, I'm the audience, I know that, but I don't know how many, I mean, like, I'm sure that my mother's going to see it, although she's pretty wedded to the 1961. I mean, that came out when she was a kid. So are there enough people who are going to be interested in this, do you think?
I think so. I mean, it's such an iconic show and story, and I think even the people, I mean, I'm assuming that the young people of, I don't know, of this
but that's the
time are
thing.
also
We think of it as
interested.
iconic, I think, because it is so tied to classical music. I mean, it's probably the show more than any other show that is linked to the classical music consciousness because of Leonard Bernstein's score. But, I'm on the Broadway subreddit, and like people consider like the old shows today to be like Little Shop of Horrors. I mean, that's from the 80s, and that's considered an old show. I mean, Little Mermaid is considered an old show because these are old now, because we're old too. But, this is really old. This is like ancient by the standards of like young people today. So maybe they're going to want to rediscover it. But I just don't know.
But that's the reason why they bring in Ansel Elgort for to play Tony, right? Like bringing in stars of today and like refreshing it that way in terms of the draw, right? Is kind of people will go see an Ansel Elgort movie regardless. Maybe.
But they took a risk on Maria. She's an unknown.
Right.
I mean, the whole reason that remakes ever get done is the hope of capitalizing on the audience that is already in love with the original and the audience to whom things like the original should appeal, but for whatever reason feels out of date. So I think what they're, gambling on is like the reason that people don't still watch the old West Side Story, or at least that new generations are not discovering West Side Story as we speak, is that it feels dated, watching the movie making and so on, which, like there's grounds for that. Like I watch older movies, I'm like, okay, I have to like kind of put myself in the mindset of I'm watching an older movie. There's a set of expectations that goes with that. And so if we're able to bring the modern sensibility to the filmmaking in a way that still makes older audiences who originally already love the work appreciate it, that's the whole reason for remake. That's the entire justification. And also, I mean, we see that Broadway is still experiencing like runaway hits. I mean, this is not Hamilton, obviously, but like there's no reason to suppose that this is going to be just some siloed music thing over there only for the geeks and nerds of theater.
Is Lin-Manuel Miranda in this movie? I'm kind of surprised that he's not. He's in everything these days.
But In the Heights is coming out too, I think, this summer.
That's right.
Right?
That's
so,
right, yeah.
I mean, I see those as kind of not competing, but they're kind of parallel in way.
Yeah. They're encroaching on each other's turf a little bit. A little bit of Jets and Sharks going on there.
And it's worth mentioning too that like David Newman is kind of adapting the score to the movie, and that Gustavo Dudamel is also it was hired to conduct, I guess, the orchestra for this as well. So there is maybe that's more of the classical music angle for us.
Well, they are bringing lots of classical music star power to this, for
right.
sure. And certainly, I'm sure that Leonard Bernstein's children and now grandchildren are very happy about this adaptation taking place.
Well, given how expensive it is to rent his works for orchestra, I can't imagine
exactly
how much they're making. Well, we'll keep abreast, but definitely looking forward to this release, and hopeful that more trailers with Mambo and the Cool Fugue will drop in the coming months. Let's go to our second segment for today. Kensho, what do we have?
Listeners, have you been inspired to take up a new routine or a new diet during the pandemic? If so, have you tried the one where you eat dinner in 4 minutes and it consists solely of foods that are white? No? How about petting a toy troll, pig, and frog before going to bed every night? If you are as bewildered as I am, you can read Zach Faraday's recent post on Van Magazine entitled, "I Tried 5 Composers' Ridiculous Daily Routines, a Working Week of Wacky Habits." In the piece, Faraday recounts his experiences reenacting daily routines of composers Edvard Grieg, Ludwig van Beethoven, Erik Satie, Igor Stravinsky, and Antonin Dvorak. This was such a fun read, and I thought we'd dive into these routines and see if any of us are tempted to try some of them. What did y'all think?
Why white? Like, that is my real question. If I were to pick a diet, a color diet, white is like, well, it's not the last, because I'd still have rice, which is like, I'm okay. But like, I don't even think that was included in Satie's list of foods that he ate.
Isn't this a common thing among like picky eating children, is that they only eat white foods?
Yeah.
Like buttered pasta, buttered spaghetti or something. I think that's a popular one. Or like
Right, but then the kicker is that then, this is Satie, by the way. This is Erik Satie's weird daily routine here. But he also eats in 4 minutes.
Yeah,
this prescribed
is
amount of
clearly
time.
an example of Satie's like weird performance art. This is bogus. He was having a laugh with this because he said that one of the white foods that he ate was moldy fruit.
Oh yeah, can you read this list of food? Because I couldn't even handle, like, I haven't had lunch yet, but if I had, I might be in danger of losing it just reading this list of food.
This is from, I guess, a diary of his, because this is actually Satie writing. He writes, "My only nourishment consists of food that is white. Eggs, sugar, shredded bones, the fat of dead animals, veal, salt, coconuts, chicken cooked in white water, moldy fruit, rice, turnips, sausages and camphor, pastry, cheese, parentheses, white varieties, cotton salad, I don't want to know, and certain kinds of fish without their skin. I have a good appetite, but never talk when eating for fear of strangling myself. This is such a troll move. I mean, this is all troll.
This is like a pre-Dadaist,
this one is,
essay here.
This one is, yeah.
My big surprise with this is, okay, so I have heard my whole life Beethoven counted every bean, right? He counted 60 beans per every cup of coffee.
Right.
And I'm not a coffee drinker. I mean, I was in the past, but I'm not a coffee drinker, and I certainly never counted my beans. I could not have told you how many beans were in a cup of coffee. My impression was always that was a very strong, robust cup of coffee with 60 beans. But Zach Faraday in his article says that that's like super weak. Do you guys drink coffee, and do you have any sense of how many beans go into a cup?
I don't know. I know I do like pour over coffee, and I think I probably use more than 60 beans, but I wouldn't know. I just don't count, so I can't tell.
Google informs me that 70 coffee beans are an average human-sized cup of coffee.
Yeah, but Zach Faraday says that it was like this brought him down throughout this entire week, was drinking this really weak coffee. And of course, maybe these things, if I had to guess, I would think that standards of intensity of coffee have probably gone up, even in the last 50 years, right? Because, I mean, people used to drink that freeze-dried Folger stuff, and now everything's got to be like the artisanal pour-over Chemex, Kensho, Watanabe special.
Okay, how about Stravinsky's routine of overcoming writer's block by doing a headstand?
That seemed very intelligent to me. Yeah, I mean, get up and move around, if you're having a block. Like
forcing some blood up there.
And Stravinsky, he's somebody who insisted on composing at the piano and tried to have as many instruments as he was writing for or surrounding him. Like, I think that his studio setup was he had the piano, and then he had like several percussion instruments around him, including pitched percussion, so that, he could always be banging on something or stomping on something. He really liked that tactile sense of writing the music. So I guess he was already pretty active when he was writing.
How about Grieg's little Lucky Charms?
Yeah, talk about that, because you alluded to this in the intro.
Yeah, so apparently Grieg had a trio of toys that he considered lucky. There was one of a troll, a pig, and a frog that was made of cloth that he actually even took with him in his pocket and rubbed for good luck before concerts. So any of you guys have Lucky Charms for like concerts and stuff? Do you like take something in your pocket or pocket square or anything like that?
I know Will does.
I know, that's why I was kind of alley-ooping that for you.
Yeah, through nefarious means, which am not at liberty to divulge right now. This ties into our last segment. I have one of Leonard Bernstein's handkerchiefs, and I wear that in my pocket, and in my during all of my concerts as a little lucky charm.
Do you wear it as like a pocket square, or do you have it like not visible?
I wear it as a pocket square. Oh no, are you kidding me? If I've got the Leonard Bernstein handkerchief, everybody's going to see it.
That's what I thought.
Do you have a pre-concert routine, either of you?
I don't know if it counts as a routine, but I always try to take a nap, like of somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes before a concert.
How far before?
So I don't like waiting backstage so much, so then I try to arrive at the hall 15 minutes before the concert, if not less. I just like to kind of come in, change, and then just go out on stage.
You like everybody to be nervous.
No, that part I don't like. It's just a unintended consequence of my choices, I guess. So then I try to be taking a nap like 2 hours before that time. So like maybe half an hour nap, take a shower, get ready to go, leisurely walk over.
What about eating before concerts? Because concerts are often a very awkward time in terms of meals.
Yeah, I'll try to eat something like a sandwich or like a soup or something, like nothing too heavy, obviously, before the concert. But yeah, I don't have like a real routine, I would say.
I can't find mine. I think I've tried a couple of times, but it's like when the stakes and I don't know, maybe like the actual nature of the concerts in my life has like often gone over a broad range. So let me give a more specific example. If I'm going to be like nervous before a concert, then I'll do like the tea and the banana thing. But like it's very rare that for before a concert that I'm nervous for that I'm hungry at all. Like I might not eat the entire afternoon. And then the final measure will happen and I will realize, oh my God, I'm so hungry. That has happened on several occasions. But on concerts in which I have no particular reason to be nervous, then I can pretty much conduct my day as normal. I'd love to have a lucky charm. I mean, this is the one, composer habit that we're looking at that seems like there's a modern sensibility to it in a way. I mean, the specific choice of talismans are kind of funny. But I bet there's a lot of theater people out there who have little talismans or superstitions about what they can or cannot do. And I mean, obviously for like vocalists, those things are rooted in like actual knowledge of what things happen to their bodies when they do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
What about like daily routines? Are you guys creatures of habit?
I mean, I think after many months of doing this podcast together, I think you guys can assume that I don't have a routine whatsoever in terms of how I operate in life. So
Really? Do you not get up at the same time every day and have,
No. But I do make coffee in the morning. So there's that.
I do that too, but Will, I think you're probably the regularist of us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and long before the pandemic.
Do you still do those hot
and cold
showers that you told me about?
No, I don't do those anymore. I got that from
younger?
Lauren Mazel. He was on an interview with Charlie Rose, and he said, "I'm a hot and cold shower man." And Charlie was like, "What? What? Say more." So the idea was that you start the shower red hot, like no cold at all. And you take that for as long as you can possibly stand it. And then with no ceremony at all, you turn the hot all the way off, turn the cold all the way on, and then you stay in the cold shower for the rest of the time. I have given that up, although I did do it for a long time, maybe 2 or 3 years.
I mean, I really kind of wish I had the discipline to even like wake up at the same time regardless of what the first thing I have scheduled is, because I find myself sleeping in until 10 or 11 pretty regularly these days.
All right, the last one that we haven't touched on is train spotting with Dvorak. Anybody else train watchers?
Train spotting has always struck me as the strangest thing, but I guess it's, made a lot more sense in the 1860s.
I mean, it's not dissimilar, I think, to like bird watching. Like there's a hobby that I don't quite understand, but like some people are like super into. And for all these minute details that one just enjoys appreciating, because you can put yourself pretty regularly in a situation where you can optimize your likelihood of observing said details, and then you can observe all the details. I mean, it's cute in a way.
And the fact that, especially in this country, the train system has not been updated since the time of Dvorak. This is very apt.
Hey, we're in Joe Biden's America now. He loves Amtrak more than just about anything in the world. So,
all right, well, listeners, let us know if you have some routines that rival Grieg's Lucky Charms or Beethoven's coffee habit.
Or Satie's food. That's the one I really want to know about.
No, we've established that Satie is a troll, so we're not going to pay him any mind.
Fair enough.
All right, on to our third topic, Will.
What happens when string stars venture outside the realms of music for endorsement deals? That's the question posed by Brian Wise in a recent issue of Strings magazine. Wise points out that classical musicians have a long history of serving as spokespeople for a variety of non-music related products, including soap, beer, and scotch. And he even points out that in mid-century America, opera singers frequently endorsed the health benefits of various cigarette brands. But the more things change, the more they stay the same. These days, it's modern artists like Sheku Kane Mason repping Paul Smith suits, or Nicola Benedetti advertising Swiss watches. Gone are the days when a violinist like Jascha Heifetz would be pictured with a bottle of Pabst Blue Ribbon. Now it's luxury brands that want the cachet of classical music, and vice versa. But the biggest surprise in this article, for me at least, was to learn that in the 21st century, brand deals only rarely involve the exchange of money. In the 1980s, Itzhak Perlman received $10,000 for appearing in an American Express ad. Now, when Ray Chen advertises a pair of Sony headphones, he might not get anything at all, except maybe a pair for himself. Guys, that's actually where I thought I would like to start this. Were you surprised to find out that brand ambassadors these days, even big famous classical music stars, are not earning actual money in a lot of cases from their appearances? And certainly even less likely for some of these, very minor brand influencers, like the kind of TikTok teens that we talked about last week, or the practice account Instagrams that might have, 10 or 15,000 followers and can work out some kind of a brand deal, but they might not get much, if any, money at all out of that.
I mean, my immediate question is, what happens to athletes? I guess I don't know, but I always assume that there would be millions of dollars changing hands. And so if this is an example of a place where musicians, as we well known is a problem in our industry, are treated this way because they're just assumed to want more exposure because that's what's going to generate the money for them, then we have a problem here.
Right, because it's like now everything is just exposure economy. Like brand deals are an exposure economy. Recordings are an exposure economy. I mean, most artists don't make money on recordings anymore.
But at least in that situation, you end up with a recording of yourself. Like that is a product, that is an artistic product.
But if you're an internet aesthetics fandom subculture member, maybe you really want to be seen in the right suit. I mean, like Sheku says that he loves these suits. That's why he appears in them. He thinks that they feel really comfortable and he likes the look.
That makes a little sense to me. If you want to kind of buy in and be seen as a representative of the culture that you're trying to advance and that you get a great suit out of it, that makes a little more sense. But a pair of headphones, come on.
So guys, when the Classical Gabfest in the near future is top of the charts, and we are all big, famous, influence type people, what, if any, products or services or brands would you recommend?
I mean, I think if we're going to seek a company representation of our podcast, it's going to be Zoom.
Oh, I thought you were going to say U-Gears.
I thought you were going to say U-Gears too. That's the obvious one. We're like champing at the bit to represent them. We've done everything that we can. Talk about exposure.
We're sorry, U-Gears. Tiffany let us down there, but we still love you.
Mine would be a very obvious one. Like it's almost so obvious that it's crazy that it exists. There is a British clothing company. It started as a shoe company called Will's Vegan Shoes. I wear their shoes. I think they're fantastic. And I would love to represent them in some fashion or form. So WVS, which I believe is now Will's Vegan Clothing. I think it's expanded out, but I haven't bought a new article of clothing in at least 2 years because there's no reason for me not to wear the same thing every day. All right. I think that about wraps this up. Time for our classical mixtape. Tiffany.
In our classical mixtape, we each recommend some music that's caught our ear this week to share with our listeners. So, Kensho, what do you have for us this week?
So I did a little bit of, I kind of didn't know what to recommend this week, so I was kind of exploring a little bit. And one pianist that kind of popped up in my mind is a pianist that I worked with in Japan about 1.5 years ago. And his name is Izumi Tateno. He's in his 80s now, and he still has an amazing career. He had a really great career in Japan, then also moved to Helsinki in Finland and was really well known for performing Finnish works. And so he put out an album of kind of Finnish miniatures way back when. And I fell upon a piece by the Finnish composer Ilmari Hannikainen, a Valse, Opus 17, number 1, which I really enjoyed, and so I wanted to share that with you. Tateno has a really inspiring story in that in 2002 he suffered a stroke right after a concert and was paralyzed on his right side of his body, and he's kind of worked his way back into playing shape. And I had the chance to perform Ravel's Concerto for Left Hand with him in Japan. Actually, there's a really interesting story with him as well. I'll keep it quick, but I had met him as a real youngster, maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 years old, before I moved to the States and Japan. His sister used to accompany me on like my very first like Suzuki violin recitals. I got his autograph when I was really, really young. And so I was able to kind of share that with him when I got to work with him, 30 some odd years later, which is kind of cool. So a little ode to Izumi Tateno this week with this cool piece.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that performance and that story with us, Kensho. Will, what do you have for us?
All right, my recommendation this week is coming from one of our friendly competitors in the classical podcasting game. I'm a big listener to the Classical Top 5 podcast, which one of the co-hosts there is Richard Bratby, who has been a guest on this podcast a couple of times. And their basic conceit is that they pick a category, and they have 3 co-hosts, and they each think of 5 works in that genre or category that they think are like the top. So this past week, it was First Symphonies. And a piece that I did not know anything about, really a composer that I know basically nothing about, is Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach. And the first symphony of his set of Hamburg symphonies, these kind of blew my mind. I mean, they were talking about CPE Bach in a way that I had never thought about before. They call him the interesting Bach. And he was really kind of a wacky composer. I mean, his stuff is pretty out there. So this is the second movement, and it's really an interesting study in orchestration. It's a 3-voice texture, but the instruments that are playing are 2 flutes, violas, cellos, and bass. The first flute doubles the viola part 2 octaves higher, and the second flute doubles the cello part 2 octaves higher. And then there are occasionally just little interjections from both sections of violin playing in unison, just little pizzicati.
Thanks, Will. All right, and to round out our mixtape for the day, I'm going to submit a piece by Kalinnikov, who, by chance, actually, I would also submit if I were playing the First Symphony game. His First Symphony would definitely be in there. And now I'm wondering if I shouldn't have just put his First Symphony in this mixtape. But I discovered a piece this week called his Serenade for Strings. It's a short 10-minute little single movement piece, and it's, it has that very classic sad but not sad kind of atmosphere about that, very, very Russian. And I'm quite charmed by it, and I have enjoyed listening to it this week, and I think I might program it at my earliest opportunity. Discovering Kalinnikov's music is like getting another Tchaikovsky that, with all the same soulfulness and ease of access that you just never heard of before. Mm-hmm. So it's very joyful to listen to, because it's there's this music and it's good, and I never knew it existed. Mm-hmm. That was my feeling listening to the First Symphony when the first time I discovered it as well. All right, you'll find the links to all these and to our full classical mixtape playlist in the show notes.
And with that, it's time to wrap up this episode of the Classical Gabfest. I'm Kensho Watanabe, and on behalf of Tiffany Liu and William White, I'd like to thank you so much for listening and to encourage you to subscribe and rate us on Apple Podcasts. We'd also love your help spreading the word about the show on social media, where you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can reach us at classicalgabfest@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, happy listening, and we'll be with you next week. Man, Heifetz and PBR, those were the days.
Seems a bit déclassé to me.